Thank you very much. Greetings, everyone. Again, my name is Irene Akite from Faculty of Agriculture and Environment, and I'm sharing experience from the course redesign workshop conducted in 2019. And today we are going to develop learning assessments for the learning outcomes that we developed in day 2. The course still remains Sociology and Group Dynamics, targeting Bachelor of Science in Agriculture Year 3, and it's meant to equip them with real-life skills in social analysis for agricultural development. And at the end of the course, I expect graduates who are competent and skilled to collectively solve agricultural development challenges. In day 1, we looked at concept mapping, and for the core sociology and group dynamics, we were able to come up with a concept map that looks at these 5 concepts and the relationships between them. And day 2, we looked at the learning outcomes, where I was able to take you through outcomes before the redesign workshop and those after the redesign workshop, and you're able to see the transition as well as the skills that students are able to gain from these different concepts. Now today I want to make assessments meaningful for students. Most often as lecturers we give assessments because we are supposed to evaluate students, but do we stop to ask ourselves whether these assessments are actually meaningful or they enhance learning for students? For instance, if I ask a student 1 plus 1, what is the answer of 1 plus 1? Obviously, we expect 2. Therefore, that means that if you want a better answer, you must ask a better question. And in other words, if we want our students to learn better, then we must ask them formative questions that will help them, or that will prompt them to think more other than giving memorized answers. So that brings us to summative assessment and formative assessment. It is evidence that most times the concentration is on the summative assessments that is done at the end of the course. But this ladder here shows us the importance of formative assessments that later on results into summative assessments. So in the course Sociology and Group Dynamics, I was able to develop learning assessments that are specific to different concepts that I had developed and for the different learning outcomes. For instance, on learning outcome 1, which was meant to enable students relate the influence of individuals on society and vice versa to improve the life of rural farmers or bring about social change, I had formative assessments and summative assessments in this case. In the formative assessments, students are supposed to make a presentation, PowerPoint presentation and oral presentation, and I was using a rubric to assess this presentation, whether it meets the desired qualities. Secondly, I was able to use case studies whereby students form groups from similar communities, and these groups are gender sensitive, consisting of both males and female students, and they're supposed to discuss how their culture affects adoption of agricultural technologies in their given areas. After this, students are supposed to make a report, and from the discussion, and this report is assessed using a rubric and then awarded accordingly. For this particular learning outcome, the summative assessment would be examinations, which are essay-based questions, testing the application of the knowledge they've learned. And secondly, there are tests that are normally done midway the semester, and others are done towards the end of the semester. And thirdly, it's participation in class, how each and every student participates given the presentations, the case studies, and other activities that take place in class. Then secondly, mentoring farmer groups effectively for improved service delivery as a learning outcome. I expected What I normally do is group presentations for the students, whereby students make oral presentation on the implication of farmer organized groups on agricultural development, and their participation is assessed, and a rubric is also developed for the presentation. So I use the same approach for the different learning outcomes. However, I'd like to put more emphasis on the learning outcome of mainstreaming gender in the extension service delivery. I use simulation in this as a formative assessment in this learning outcome, where I expected students to mimic the rural setting, prepare an extension package, and provide an extension service to a farmer group. Now, the form of assessment here is formative because I would assess the extension package that students have prepared in response to a given problem that they've got from a farmer, an individual farmer or a farmer group. I would then go ahead to assess the participation in the simulation and as well use a checklist to grade this. And secondly, I'd also like to talk about the role play, where I expect students to take on different gender roles in their different capacity, and this would help in understanding the division of labor and the different roles that men and women take up in different communities. But as I do this, I ensure that there is equal participation between female and male students. And in this case, I use participation and checklists to help me in carrying out the assessment. And in the same way, the summative assessments are normally based on end of semester examinations, tests, and participation in class. So these are some of the techniques that I use as a form of assessment for the different learning outcomes. Yeah. So having carried out this form of assessments, I would expect that at the end of the day, I'll be able to get graduates who are employable, graduates who are able to create employment opportunity for others, and who are able to be change makers in our communities. I would like to give an example where a graduate went to do interviews, and the human resources was asking him that, I see you did well in school, but what real world skills do you have? And the students is saying that he can take tests, yet these are not real world skills that employers are looking at. Yes, they already saw your papers, you've passed well, but what skills can you offer for the development of their organization? These are some of the skills that we were talking about in the learning outcomes. The problem solving skills, communication skills, critical thinking skills, these are the skills that employers want. And if we are able to identify this early in the curriculum and the delivery of the courses, then we're able to equip students with what employers want and what they can use to create employment for others. I would also like to give an example here, a case here, whereby a teacher is saying that for fair selection, everybody has to take the same exam. Please climb that tree. Now, this is unfair, and this shows that the use of one method of assessment may disadvantage other students because students have different weaknesses. Take in this case, for example, the fish which is in the pot. How would you expect this fish to climb the tree? Take, for example, an elephant, which is big. What do you think an elephant will do to climb this tree? So that means that use of a combination of assessment methods would facilitate learning for different learners in different ways. And this justifies the need for different learning assessments. Thank you so much for listening to day 3. I can't stop thinking, and I can't wait to go to day 4 of our experience sharing. See you soon.